Psychology plays a vital role in the field of education. It contributes to a better understanding of its aims by defining them and making them more transparent. If a teacher does not know psychology, he will not be able to understand the needs and problems of a child and do suitable educational strategies. One of the psychological foundations of education is behaviorism, which believes that all behaviors are learned interactions with the environment. It also states that innate or inherited factors have very little influence on behavior. Hi, I'm Lexter. Today, we'll be learning one of the behavioral learning theories, B.F. Skinner's operant conditioning, which directly influenced many behavioral management and classroom management systems in today's schools.
Think about it for a minute. How did a student learn to behave how they do? How did a student learn that a particular behavior is good and the others are bad? That laughing boisterously or bullying at school is not good, or having high grades is a desirable behavior? The teacher and the school environment taught them, right? But what were the tools used to drive this behavior at school? Yes, you're correct. Operant conditioning. Let us meet Joey. Joey is a 9-year-old boy in Mrs. Aguilar's 7th grade class. Every day, he enters school, ready to work and eager to earn Mrs. Aguilar's approval. He knows he will have to work hard and do the right thing to achieve this. However, this wasn't always the case. In the beginning of the year, Joey often broke the rule and acted out in the class. Only through Mrs. Aguilar's understanding of operant conditioning was Joey's behavior changed. In the next part of this video, we will learn how to introduce operant conditioning in our classrooms and how we can use them to manage students' behavior. Operant conditioning is the process of learning behavioral patterns based on a certain environmental stimuli, such that the external stimuli lead to a certain behavior. A certain human being knows the kind of consequences that a particular behavior leads to. Therefore, to either encourage or discourage that consequence, he will behave in a specific way. Operant conditioning is based on the idea that we can increase or decrease a certain behavior by adding a consequence. This consequence can be either reinforcement or punishment. For example, when students keep attending classes late, a teacher can provide reinforcement or punishment for the teacher to attain his desired behavior, which is making students attend class on time. In operant conditioning, reinforcement and punishment can be either positive or negative. This means, in our example, we have 4 possible ways to teach these students a lesson. We can do the 4 options in a table. If the reinforcement is positive, the teacher adds something pleasant, like giving a pizza party at the end of the month for no tardies. This is to increase the likelihood of attending classes on time. If reinforcement is negative, we still want to increase the desired behavior, this time by removing something unpleasant, like long quizzes. If punishment is positive, we add an unpleasant response to decrease behavior, such as letting the students clean up the school environment. When punishment is negative, we also want to decrease the behavior, now by removing something pleasant, like removing recess time.
The word positive and negative does not represent the nature or quality of the reinforcement. They describe whether the stimulus is added or subtracted to reinforce the particular behavior. Moreover, in operant conditioning, if the person stops manipulating, the conditioned behavior will eventually disappear. This is called extinction.
Operant conditioning was first described by behaviorist Burrhus Frederick Skinner, famously known as B.F. Skinner. He was a professor of psychology and subscribed to behaviorism. He argued that you could only study visible behavior. Skinner believes that organisms are doing what they do naturally until they accidentally encounter a stimulus that creates conditioning, resulting in a change in behavior. To test this, a rat is placed in an operant conditioning chamber, later known as the Skinner box. Inside the box was a lever that released food when pressed. Regarding education, Skinner believed that the goal of psychology should be to find ways to make education enjoyable and effective for all students. Skinner did not approve of using punishment in schools or as a behavioral modification in general. He based this presumption on his empirical research that found punishment ineffective. Skinner advocates for frequent reinforcement to modify and influence student behavior.
In the later part of this video, we will learn how to use reinforcement in our classrooms. Three characteristics of operant conditioning are essential to behavior management. These are reinforcers, the reinforcement schedule, and the timing of reinforcement.
Reinforcers have been placed in three categories: the primary, secondary, and the social reinforcers. Primary reinforcers require no special training to be effective. These include food, water, and sensory stimulation. Secondary reinforcers are reinforcers whose reinforcing properties have been acquired through experience. An example of this is the use of token economy. Many teachers use extrinsic reward, such as stamps, tickets, tokens, and play money to reinforce behavior. These rewards can be redeemed for prizes or privileges. Finally, social reinforcers are reinforcers whose reinforcing properties are derived from behaviors of the members of one species. These reinforcers are typically seen as a blend of primary and secondary reinforcers, including praise, affection, and attention. In addition to their type, another vital characteristic of reinforcers is their saliency, or the degree to which an individual prefers the reinforcement. Reinforcers with a high saliency are expected to produce a more significant response in the frequency of the operant behavior. For example, if sitting quietly during instruction was a low probability behavior for a student, access to playing with a preferred toy could be used as a reinforcer for the operant behavior. In the classroom setting, this is often used by introducing a game or privilege that students highly enjoy. Access to this game is restricted unless certain behavior, like low probability behavior, are performed first. A primary conclusion from both of these hypotheses is that teachers looking to find a highly salient reinforcer should look for activities that students prefer to do in their free time. Thus, it is essential to know our students, or to do some profiling of our students, for us to learn their highly salient reinforcers. Reinforcement schedules are divided into two categories. These are continuous reinforcement schedule, in which every desired behavior is reinforced every time it occurs, and partial reinforcement schedules, in which behaviors are reinforced based on ratios. Partial reinforcement schedules can be fixed or variable. Partial reinforcement schedules can be fixed or variable. Fixed, for example, a reinforcement after 3 behavioral occurrences, or reinforcement after 3 minutes. Or variable, for example, the ratio or interval at which reinforcement is given at random but averages to a specific amount.
It has been found that variable partial reinforcement schedules are more effective in improving the frequency of operant behavior and limiting its extinction when reinforcement is no longer delivered. Using partial reinforcement is generally a more practical option for a classroom setting than continuous reinforcement. Instead of rewarding a behavior every time it occurs, it may be appropriate to reinforce the behavior some of the time.
The teachers using reinforcements in their classrooms should be cautious of seeking to reward students every time they perform a behavior. As many teachers using rewards have noted, students are less likely to perform desired behaviors when the rewards are not present. The third characteristic of operant conditioning is the timing of reinforcement. Behavioral research has found that the timing of the reinforcer is critical. If there is much delay between the operant behavior and the reinforcer, improving the frequency of the desired behavior is less likely to happen. For instance, if a teacher said that if students were to turn in their homework, they would receive extra recess, the behavioral theory would argue that the closer the time the teacher allowed the students to have their recess, the more likely students would be to turn in their homework regularly. If a teacher often forgot to give the reward or waited later in the day to grant it, the less likely students would be to turn in their homework.
In the next section of this video, we will discuss how to implement B.F. Skinner's operant conditioning in our classrooms.
Implementation of operant conditioning. Operant conditioning has been implemented in school systems in a variety of ways. Teachers and parents rewarded students for good behavior long before Skinner's theories were developed. However, many behavior management systems used in today's schools are directly influenced by his work. Skinner advocated for immediate praise, feedback, and reward when seeking to change troublesome behavior or encourage correct behavior in the classrooms. To apply Skinner's theories in your classroom, you could do the following. Create with students' input, if necessary, a system of positive incentives for individual, group, and class behavior. Reward positive behavior before reprimanding negative behavior. For example, instead of punishing one student for not turning in homework, give all other students who turned in their homework consistent rewards until it induces that student to follow the rest of the class. Ensure that positive reinforcement is immediate so that it can be associated with positive behavior. This is crucial, especially when secondary teachers see students for a small portion of each day. Provide feedback as students work, not just after finishing a particular task. Ensure that students have mastered prerequisite skill before moving on, even if this puts different periods of the same class on other tracks. Reinforce positive behaviors students exhibit, either with problem students or the whole class to refocus problem students. Using punishment. As mentioned, we teachers will primarily use positive reinforcement in our classrooms. However, there are some extreme cases where negative behavior will need to be directly addressed. This can be done through various consequences, such as taking away privileges or documenting bad behavior through write-ups. Usually, consequences for breaking the rules are established through a school-wide conduct code, and students are made aware of them at the beginning of the year. However, if we consistently use positive reinforcement, we should not have to use any of those consequences mentioned. In the classroom, positive reinforcement will be our primary way of managing students' behavior. While punishments and consequences should be made known to our students, they will need to be used less often if you implement positive reinforcement effectively.